This is Kendrick Summers for Radio Free Decipher. This is our second installment of our weekly radio program, and I'll be bringing you this installment's interviews. First, I'd like to start off with some questions that were sent in by Eric Nuponin. He is a listener of last week's show, and he sent in a few questions, and we'd like to start out by answering his questions. But I also want to tell you about who we're going to be interviewing today. It's going to be a pretty good show. I've got Jerry Darcy, the lead designer for the Star Wars CCG. And I've also got a couple of other guests from product development that I want to fire off some pretty candid questions to about the current state of affairs in the tournament scene, and I think you all will like hearing that, so stick around. We'll go ahead and start off with the questions that Eric has written into us, and I'll just read a little bit of his email that he sent in. It says, I just wanted you to know that I really enjoyed your first broadcast of Radio Free Decipher, and he's submitting a few questions that he'd like to use in the upcoming show. So here we go. Eric's first question is, what factors led to the removal of Shadows of the Empire as a possible future expansion set for Star Wars CCG? Now, just like to let everybody out there know that I have actually read the novel, and most of you probably have as well, and I'm sure there's some varying opinions on the quality of that writing. Personally, I thought it was a pretty good story, and as a result of Decipher's unique license renewal for the prequels and for the rest of the Star Wars galaxy, so to speak, Shadows of the Empire is included in that license, and we do have the rights to create images and concepts based on all of that material, Shadows of the Empire being one of those areas. Now, you can always bet that Decipher is going to pull the most key concepts and possibly images from all of those favorite books and novels and other sources from the Star Wars galaxy. But as it stands now, as a complete expansion, Shadows of the Empire is probably not an option for us. And one of the things that you want to think about for that is that it would be incredibly time-consuming for us to go and create images from scratch based on all those characters and concepts and resources that came from that novel, Guri and the Virago that Princess Shizor rode, and now there are some images out there, but for the most part we would have to do all that creating, and that's an incredible crunch on our time as it is. So one of the things that you'll probably want to look for is just some general concepts that come from books like Shadows of the Empire. We've done the Dreadnought class capital starship for the dark side, and that was something that came from outside the canon or outside the films, so you can expect to see more of that kind of thing. As a separate expansion for the Star Wars CCG, you should probably not hold your breath for something like that. Eric's second question is, what factors led to the removal of the Jabba's Palace two-player game for the Star Wars CCG? He goes on to ask, did it have to do with a change in direction at Decipher, a lack of time to work on such a project, or was the return from the previous Star Wars CCG two-player games less than anticipated? Well, Eric, I think your questions are pretty well on target. I think maybe it has to do with all of those things. While we were really excited about the contents of our previous two-player games, I think overall, as a lead-in game or as a entry point for new players, that may have not been the best place for us to put our energies. So I think it has a certain amount to do with that. And of course, any two-player game that we do is another project that takes away from our main thrust of the CCG itself, which is the expansions and some of the peripheral stuff like our OTSD and our enhanced products that right now are doing really well. So we want to keep that focus on those things. Good question, though. And his last question is one that I've heard people say all over the country and all over the world when I go visit them on the road at shows. And that question is an equivalent to the Fajo collection in the works for the Star Wars CCG. If any of you Star Wars players out there are also Star Trek players or collectors, you'll know that the Fajo collection is an incredible piece of art. It's something that we're really proud of, and to have something like that for the Star Wars CCG would certainly be cool, to say the least. I can just conjure up all the images that that I would want to have in some collection like that. But unfortunately, at the current time, we don't have anything in the works for that. We do have a lot planned for 1999. Fajo collection for Star Wars isn't one of them. Check back with us again, maybe in a future Radio Free Decipher broadcast. We may bring you some information like that. thank you, Eric, for sending in your questions, and hopefully we can begin to establish a precedent. We are very happy to answer the questions that you all send in to us. And we'll be moving on through the interview to talk to Jerry Darcy, the lead designer of the Star Wars CCG, and, as I said, a couple of other special guests from product development. Okay, we're back with Jerry Darcy, the lead designer for the Star Wars CCG. Jerry, it's great to have you on our second installment of Radio Free Decipher. Thanks for being here.
Sure. How you doing?
All right. Look, I want to ask you a few questions, and I'd like to start off with Endor. I know that you've got a lot on your plate right now, but tell me what you can about Endor. I know it's a pivotal expansion for us, being that it's on the heels of our first full-size expansion special edition.
Well, Endor's obviously covering that section of the movie. It's sort of, we took the elements from sort of the latter two halves of Return of the Jedi, or the latter two-thirds, really, and split them up. So most of the stuff you're going to see in Endor is just going to be about what's going on the planet, and we kind of saved the other stuff for Death Star. Chuck and Tom have been doing most of the development on that. I've been sort of coming in and, you know, making a nuisance of myself for them, and just generally giving them, you know, some direction in terms of where the Ewoks and the other cards need to be going and things like that.
Sounds good. What ramifications does Endor have as an expansion on the special edition expansion set, if any?
Well, Endor will pretty much build on what we started in special edition with objectives and with, you know, more battle-oriented things, lots more cards referencing battlegrounds, giving you advantages for occupying or controlling battlegrounds, more cards to enhance weapons, things like that.
Excellent. More green card stuff and purple card stuff. All right, well, any nuggets for our listeners about other cool stuff for 1999 as far as how we're going to back up our classic CCG license?
Yeah, we've got, obviously, Death Star 2 as another full expansion.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. It's got a lot of new themes, new stuff for players to do. Obviously, a lot of space-oriented things in that. And we've got some other products that we plan on doing that are separate from expansions for those players that were interested in objectives centering around attack run or commence primary ignition. They're going to be seeing those coming up next year.
Excellent. I think we can put a lot of energy into scenario play. I'm looking forward to seeing some of that for the coming year. Great. Got a personal question for you. We used to hang out quite regularly doing lunch and games and whatnot ages ago, back when things were a little bit younger here, and now that you're up in that white tower on whatever projects you're working on now, what's it like being a little more separated from the general crew? I'd kind of like to hear your thoughts on.
Well,
on
it's odd because most of what I get out of development is interacting with other people, getting their ideas, and so working separately, I occasionally find myself running back to these guys and saying, I have this great idea, and they tell me it sucks, and I go back. But yeah, it's obviously, given the nature of what I'm working on, you know, I have to seclude myself and work on that, so it's a little lonely sometimes, but
it's what that level 5 security clearance will do for you, Jerry.
Oh yeah,
we certainly miss seeing you as much as we used to. Well, what does Jerry do when he's not cranking out CCG expansions?
Let's see. I like I play role-playing games, computer games. I'm just pretty much a game fanatic.
Little Jedi Knight lately?
Not yet, but I'm getting a new computer soon, and I hope to be playing Jedi Knight.
Okay. Well, we can end with, what side of the Ewok fence do you sit on? Cute or kill?
I had a reputation in college for laughing every time we see the Ewoks blow up in that one scene on Endor, so I'm going to have to come down on the kill side.
Okay, so we will be revealing the squish card relatively soon, I imagine. Okay, well, thanks, Jerry. I'd like to switch gears just a little bit and add a couple of your team members to the interview. Chuck Kallenbach and Tom Lischke from Product Development. They're game designers for the Star Wars CCG. Welcome, you guys.
Hi there. How you doing, Kendrick?
All right. Thanks for both of you being here, coming in front of the firing squad, interview. And I want to ask a couple of questions about the state of affairs in the tournament scene. We want to talk briefly about Special Edition and what's happening with our Operatives issue. I know all the listeners are real interested in hearing what's going on with that. So I want to start out with, regarding the Operatives themselves, what kind of feedback are we getting now that we've issued our initial ruling for current rulings, and where are we looking to go in the next few weeks?
Well, the provisional ruling has been really well responded to by the players. I think that a lot of players wrote back on the list and said, hey, we're looking forward to testing that. We'll try it out this weekend, and we'll let you know how things are going. So we're excited about that. It seems to be working pretty well. I think that there have been some issues raised about sealed deck play for Special Edition that we're concerned about, and we're still monitoring that. So we're hoping another weekend of tournament information will help us maybe resolve that provisional part, and we'll make it a real ruling. But I think the response has been pretty good. We try to take our time and do it the right way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know that, Tom, you and I played in a tournament last weekend or a couple of weekends ago, and you had actually played with the current ruling that is existing now, and as it turns out, you ended up doing pretty well in the tournament. Tell me what your thoughts are on where that ruling stands.
Yeah, it's been an interesting process. We've really done a lot to try to do what we can to keep the strategy strong. There's been a pretty strong outcry about how strong those cards turn out to be in tournament play, and we'd really like to maintain some of those strengths. We don't want the strategy to just disappear from the environment. So it was an interesting experience to take the new ruling and sort of spring it on a couple of the players at that tournament. And the games were a lot more interactive. They found it, I think, a little bit easier to take a shot at disrupting, my early control using the Operatives. So it was a lot more fun, and I think they felt like they were able to participate in the game. What seems to have been one of the things that we really wanted to address is the fact that the Operatives really sort of masked out a lot of the rest of Special Edition, a lot of the cool strategies. The feedback that we got originally when we said that we were going to take a look at things was that while the Operatives could be beaten, it took a couple of very specific decks that weren't as fun to play as maybe some of the other objectives, like Hunt Down and Destroy the Jedi or Mind What You Have Learned. So what we're really hoping is that we can get it to a point where all those deck types are, again, strong and viable choices for the tournament environment.
Absolutely. The Operatives and the Objective and the generic sites are probably, 1/10 of the Special Edition expansion. And for all of you that are interested in trying out your new deck strategies, have a lot of fun, because there's some great stuff in there. The Hunt Down and Destroy the Jedi is one of my favorite objectives. That's just, there's a lot of heart behind that one, so enjoy it. Any leads on additions to the current rulings that we've got in focus right now?
Well, like Chuck mentioned, one of the primary pieces of feedback that we got, in addition to the sanctioned tournament environment, was some people that had concerns about the Operatives and sealed deck play. Of course, with the provisional ruling, they don't add ability towards drawing Battle Destiny. It's likely that to enhance sealed deck play a little bit, we're going to rein that back in a little bit and give them some ability to be just standard 1/1 characters if they're not doing the operation thing. So,
Jerry, you had a comment on that?
Well, like we did with Asteroid Sanctuary, when we go back and change something, we want to, like Tom said, keep something strong. We don't want to eliminate a card from being a tournament viable strategy. So we're going to do what we can to keep Operatives out there, but rein it back in a bit.
Yeah, it's a good feeling for me to know, at least from the inside, that ultimately, at the end of the day, our aim is to keep this game interactive, fun, and battle-oriented. And sometimes some of our ideas go one direction or the other, but in the end, when we have all the feedback that we need and have a clear view of the tournament environment, what we want is fun, interactive, battle-oriented decks. And I think that the general feeling of the Special Edition expansion and what's to come in Indoor is certainly going to reflect that. So, Chuck, tell us a little bit about what you guys intend to do to keep it battle-oriented.
Well, it's nice that that's what that part of the movie is all about. It's not
Indeed.
It's not Luke training on Dagobah. It's guys shooting Ewoks and Ewoks busting chicken walkers. So that's fun stuff. That makes for good cards. And I just want to mention that for those people that come down on the kill side of the Ewok fence, that if we don't make little Ewok characters, you can't kill them. So you can look at it that way as a plus.
That was a big smile from Jerry. All right, so I know that when we issued this ruling, we extended the participation to our entire tournament community to give us feedback. What ramifications does that have on our playtest process? I think it's important for everyone to know that they play an important role in this process, but I'd like for you guys to illustrate to them what that means for us and how we're going to continue to design cards in the best way possible.
Well, we try as much as possible to gather information from every possible source. So we're monitoring the squadron list, the bulletin boards, the listserv. Of course, we have a big group of playtesters, and our playtesting system is reevaluated constantly. And I think at this point it's bigger than it's ever been, and it probably has, not to cut the people that have playtested in the past, like me, short, it's probably got probably the best players we've ever had as part of our playtest group now. But we're constantly striving to make that system better and better.
Yeah, with every set we always revise our playtest system and make it better, and we're just continuing that process.
One of the things that is really interesting is trying to deal with licensed product such as Star Wars. We have a lot of obligations to maintain security of the license, so it's tough. We'd love to be able to have everybody out there helping us constantly and giving us feedback and putting an expansion in front of people early before we printed the cards, but it's just not something that we can really do. So, we really try to do the best we can to go out and find the top players. Currently, we have 3 or 4 current or top 10 players on the sanction rankings in that system, and we're hoping to keep expanding that. We're always looking for people, and when we feel that we can really fully trust them to maintain our level of security, then we love to bring them on board and have them help out. So,
thanks for that comment. Working with a licensed product is certainly a bear of a different color, and I know that sometimes our players and our community don't always get the full view of what we're doing here and what limitations we have. Ultimately, the way that we express that is through our expansions and through the cards that we create. So I hope that we're able to continue to do that, and I know that the process that we have now is certainly heading in that direction. So thanks for those candid comments. I want to ask one more question from you guys relating to the special edition Operatives issue kind of thing that we're talking about here, and I want to ask you about our policy on issuing errata and clarifications and, quite frankly, banning cards. I think the players would certainly appreciate a no-holds-barred opinion from you guys on where you want to head with that.
Well, right now, in both of our products, that is our Star Wars and our Star Trek product, we have one banned card that's raised the stakes from the premiere edition of Star Trek. It has been our policy since that set to not ban cards. And if you'll notice, in every expansion we've done, we've always tried to boost up the play value of all of our older cards. We want to make sure that every card you have, you can play, and you can get a certain amount of satisfaction with playing that card, playing that strategy. So we're constantly doing things to enhance old cards, and the last thing we want to do is ban one. So if a card is a problem, we will errata it or release rules about it or something of that nature, but we will do our best to try to not ban cards.
And as we said before, like, for example, with the operative situation, it became a negative playing experience for players that were playing against the operative deck, so that's something we wanted to address. We wanted to make sure the operatives stayed in the play environment so that you could still play those cards, and that would still be another deck strategy, adding to the diversity, which we like. And that takes some testing, and we got to gather a lot of information, so, it took a week or two, but we feel like we did step in the right direction.
Absolutely. As ever, the process continues for a better and better game. I'd like to end this afternoon's interview with a question regarding any last words from you guys about 99 and what's going to happen. We got a steamroller coming for everybody out there, and I'm hoping that everybody gets on the bus now. So tell us what we can expect in some vague terms, guys.
Well, it's just wonderful things. There's a lot of stuff planned for Classic that I think people will not expect and be very pleasantly surprised with next year. And, of course, there's a lot of other stuff having to do with that other movie coming out next year.
What movie?
That'll be surprising, I think.
It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Yep. Guys, I certainly appreciate you being here. We are about out of time, but I think we've got some pretty interesting stuff on the plate for you all, especially in the next couple of weeks. We are absolutely committed to making the play experience better and better, so thanks to all of you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I'd also like to mention that if you're interested in emailing some questions for us to answer at Radio Free Decipher, you can email us at radiofree@decipher.com, and we may indeed pick your questions to answer at the beginning of our interviews. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Until next week.